In this lesson, we're going to talk about the various types of wireless network, starting with wireless A and going through the latest standard, wireless AC. So the first wireless standard that came out way back in 1999, and it was called wireless A, or 802.11a. It operated at a speed of about 54 megabits per second, which was pretty fast back in those days, and it operated on a 5 gigahertz spectrum. Now what that means is that's the radio frequency wavelength that this particular wireless network used. The good thing about 5 gigahertz is that you can get a lot of bandwidth inside that spectrum, with 54 megabits, or as early as 1999 being the first example of that. The bad thing about it, back in those days, those radios were fairly expensive, and so it really limited the growth of Wi-Fi. So instead, they became a consumer-grade product called wireless B, or 802.11b. And this one was introduced later in 1999, and it supported only a speed of 11 megabits per second. But the benefit of it was that it actually only used a 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth or radio frequency. Now, why this is important is 2.4 gigahertz is what was being used by cordless phones at the time. It's used in microwaves. It's used in a lot of consumer-grade electronics, and so it was very cheap to produce, and wireless started spreading like crazy. A couple years later, we moved up and we said, hey, we need faster speeds. 11 megabits per second is just not fast enough. So wireless G was introduced, and that was in 2003. Wireless G actually went back to that 54 megabits per second standard that we had all the way back in 1999 with wireless A, but it still did this inside the 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. Now, over the years, we have a demand for more and more wireless and faster wireless. So in 2009, wireless N was introduced as the next generation of Wi-Fi. This was 802.11n, and a lot of people have this in their homes now. Now, when this got introduced, it went and it wanted to support that 2.4 gigahertz spectrum that was currently being used by wireless B and G, so that people didn't have to upgrade their old devices. And by doing that, they really limited themselves to only about 108 megabits per second. But at the same time, wireless N and a lot of the routers, it also supported 5 gigahertz again, going back and supporting wireless A as well. And when it did that, they could actually open up to 300 or 600 megabits per second and start getting really fast Wi-Fi again. Now, once we move into AC, which is the latest one, which started coming out in around 2012, 2013, you'll see 802.11 AC. It is out there in wide proliferation at this point, and it only supports 5 gigahertz as far as the radio frequency, but its speeds more than make up for that limitation because it can actually support up to a gigabit per second or more, giving us true wireless at a very fast speed, similar to what you get in a wired connection. And that's kind of the history of how wireless has evolved. So in this course, and the 802.11 standard that we are going to be going against is wireless B, G, and N. We're going to be focusing on that 2.4 gigahertz spectrum. Now, it's not that the techniques we're using won't work on the 5 gigahertz spectrum. It's just that the Alpha Networks card that I recommended you buy, it only works on 2.4 gigahertz networks. There are some new packet injection type wireless cards that will support 5 gigahertz, but they are much more expensive, which is why for this course we focused on those B, G, and N networks. And to be honest, every place you go is going to have backwards compatibility for that 2.4 gigahertz spectrum because so many people still have devices that have that built in. And so you're going to find it everywhere, and it'll be easy for you to exploit it as we move forward.